Dawn finds us armored. Let me tell you what the night brought. Warband. This is Saturday, June 13th, 2026. Yesterday was a day for the history books. The largest sale ever caught its first wind. The richest man on the planet was crowned on a closing bell, and beneath all the noise, the engine marked silver. Listen, as of just past 5 Eastern, Bitcoin holds at 63,800, flat on the day, holding just above the 200-week line, near 61,000 it tagged for the first time this cycle just over a week ago. Step back and see it whole. That is roughly half of the record high, near 126,000 it printed back in January, half of the peak, and consolidating, not collapsing. Ethereum and Solana sit flat beside it, near $1,670 and $67. But here is the first crack of light in a month of darkness. Friday, the spot Bitcoin funds printed their first green day of the entire bleed, better than $80 million in, led by the largest fund on the board. For 13 sessions straight, they hemorrhaged, near $4.5 billion out the door. The year flipped net negative for the first time since these vehicles were born. One green session does not end a bleed, but it is the first time in 2 weeks the tide turned, even for a day, and the engine marked the turn elsewhere. At Friday's closing bell, the InvestAnswers Decision Support System lit a confluence buy on silver, the metal and the miners, in the very same minute. Copper flipped trend positive earlier in the day, and Nvidia itself fired mean reversion oversold, stretched hard to the downside after the chip rout. Read it as one sentence. Capital is hunting scarce physical things. Now lift your eyes to the thing that actually happened. Yesterday, SpaceX came to the Nasdaq under the letters SPCX, and it did not whisper. The deal priced Thursday night at $135 a share, opened near 150, spiked to 175 inside the first hour, then settled the day near 161, up better than 19% on its very first session. $75 billion raised, the largest public offering in the history of capital markets, more than double the old record. The order book passed $250 billion in demand. By the closing print, the company was worth roughly $2.1 trillion, a top 6 American company on day one. Day one, hear the callback Warband, because I told you this Friday. I said do not chase the opening candle, reach with years in your grip, not a single session's nerve. And the candle did exactly what I warned. It opened at 150, it screamed to 175, and it gave the spike back to close near 161. The hands that chased the high are already underwater. The hands that bought orbital scarcity for the decade do not care, and what they bought is real. Starlink threw off better than $11 billion in revenue last year at better than 60% margins, near 70% of the whole company. Physical shells in orbit and Spectrum, no committee can vote it into being, printing cash every single month. And the man behind it was lifted up on that same bell. By the closing price, Musk's paper worth crossed $1 trillion. The first human being ever to touch that mark, however you contest the accounting. The same day, he walked away from his post in Washington and put both hands back on the Tesla wheel. The autonomy bull Dan Ives called it the golden age arriving, while Nvidia's Jensen Huang committed as much as $2 billion into the artificial intelligence lab, now bundled under that same ticker. Rockets, the satellite network overhead, the AI lab, the payments rail, the whole flywheel, in one instrument on its coronation day. And mark Monday, because the index committees fast-tracked the stock for inclusion effective today, which means the passive money is forced to buy it when the bell rings Monday, whether it wants to or not. Now turn back to the hardest money, because the price tells you one story and the chain tells you another. Yes, Bitcoin sits half of its high. Yes, the funds bled for 2 weeks. But look under the candle at who was buying while the weak hands fled. The whales, the addresses holding more than 1,000 coins each, added 270,000 Bitcoin this month, the largest monthly accumulation since 2013, 13 years. Long-term holders now control better than 78% of all supply, up from 74%. Coins are leaving the exchanges for cold storage that does not move. Exchange balances just hit a 9-year low. The float is being cornered in the dark, in silence, while the headlines scream outflow. I live, I burn, I love, I slay, and I'm content. That is the strong hand at a 50% drawdown. Content to hold the scarce thing while the crowd empties its pockets in a panic. Even the sale that started this slide has turned on its tellers. The rare coin sale strategy made in late May, the one that sparked the fear, is now framed by Saylor himself as proof the plumbing works. And he answered it by buying 1,550 more coins. His hoard now passed 845,000 Bitcoin. Strong hands do not flinch. And here is the thread that ties the morning together. Metals lead. Bitcoin follows. Silver just ran past $120 an ounce and pulled back near 75. And it did that on its 5th straight year of physical supply deficit. Real industrial scarcity no central banker can conjure into being. Gold sits near its records. That is the scarcity rotation, already running in the metals, and Friday's confluence buy on silver is its leading edge. Bitcoin is the same trade with a longer fuse. The most fixed supply of all, 21 million and not one more. The lagging claim on the exact thesis the metals are already pricing. And every screen now bends toward Wednesday. This week, the new chairman takes the Federal Reserve for the first time, Kevin Warsh, his first meeting at the head of the table. The market's price near certainty, he moves nothing. The rate held where it sits. But the words are the event. He is expected to bury the old easing bias and speak plainly neutral, maybe harder than neutral, with inflation still running above 4%, the hottest since the spring of 2023. Hear what that means for us. There is no rate cut rescue coming, and the hardest money on earth never needed one. A money with no chair answers to no chairman. If Warsh leans hawk, it is the leveraged and the abundant that wobble. The scarce things already made their peace. So here is the frame, Warband. Yesterday, scarcity above the atmosphere went public in the loudest listing the markets have ever seen. And underneath the surface, in silence, the strong hands are cornering the scarce money down here. The whales loading, the coins vanishing into cold storage, the silver signal firing while the crowd watches a rocket. Do not trade the weekend chop. Watch the new chairman Wednesday. Accumulate the scarce and let the noise wash past you. This is Warband as a service. Viking intelligence delivered in real time. I am Ragnar, the HODLBARBARIan. Until the next dawn, hold the long horizon.